This week in the Parsha, we read about the ending of the dramatic story of Joseph and his brothers when he's finally, after 22 years separation and anguish and a prison term, sold as a slave, he finally is reunited with his brothers, and he tells them the most amazing statement. He says, "You think that I'm angry at you for selling me as a slave? You're making a mistake. Nothing was by chance. Nothing was by accident. God orchestrated my life because I needed to be in Egypt exactly when I was there. Because as you remember, Joseph is the one that devised the plan how to save Egypt from the terrible famine that we're in. And he rose to greatness, and he had to be there. And that's what he tells his brothers. You may think that you did something wrong to me, and therefore I hold no grudges. All is orchestrated by God. There's nothing by chance in my life, and nor is there any chance in anyone's life." And I want to tell you a fascinating story that I just heard today. I'm going to look at my notes because I wrote some of the details, but it's a fascinating story. A man by the name of Marcel Sternberger, one day he has a friend that's in the hospital. He decides he's going to take the train to the hospital and visit him. He never travels that train. He never goes that route. He was just there that day. He goes into the car. It's full of people, no place to sit. But just as he walked in, a man gets up and leaves the train. He dashes for the place, sits down. Right near him is a man reading a newspaper. He looks to the side of himself, looks to the side, and he sees it's in Polish. And the man's looking in the classified section. He asks the man, "Are you looking for a job?" He says, "No, I'm looking for my wife." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "I come from a place called Debrecen in Hungary. And during the war, I was drafted and I was sent to the Russians, to the front, and my assignment was to clear out the dead bodies from the front lines of the soldiers, and to bury them. By the time I came back, my city was liberated, the war was over, but I never knew what happened to my wife, and whether she went to Auschwitz, did she survive, and therefore I came to America and I'm looking for her." So the man's thinking to himself, this is amazing. Just a few days ago, I was at a party and I met a woman, and she tells me that she's from Debrecen, Hungary, and that her husband was taken during the war on an assignment to clear out dead bodies of Russian soldiers, and I never heard whatever happened to him. We were liberated, he never came back, and I'm lost. He's lost from me, and I'm lost from him. See, he turns to this, and he says to the woman at the party, "Let me take down your number, your name, your number." It was interesting to him. He turns to the man on the train and says, "What's your name?" And he says, "My name is Bella Paskin." Guy takes out, this Mr. Marcel takes out the paper from his pocket where he had the woman's name and number on it, and imagine that, he sees on the paper, it says Maria Paskin. He asks, "What was your wife's name?" He says it was Maria. He says, "Sir, we're going to go out of the train next stop and we're going to make a phone call." And he goes out and he goes into a phone booth. He makes the phone call to this woman. It rings a few times. She answers. He says, "What was your husband's name? You remember me? We met at a party." He says, "You told me the story of your husband. He was taken during the war." He said, "What was your husband's name?" He says, "My husband's name was Bella Paskin." He says, he began to choke up and cry. And he turns to Bella. He says, "Come inside the phone booth, take the receiver, and watch a miracle happen right in front of your eyes." And he goes out, and he sees Mr. Paskin, Bella, talking, and suddenly he starts banging on his head and screaming at the top of his lungs in astonishment. Couldn't believe what just happened. And Marcel is crying and thinking to himself, what just happened here? Now the skeptic would say, yeah, it was by chance. He happened to go visit his sick friend by chance, got onto this train by chance, onto this car by chance. The person that left the seat and made it vacant for me, so that was by chance. And the person sitting near him was by chance. And all this by chance, but we know better. Nothing of that is, of course, true. God was riding the train that day and orchestrated this incredible turn of events to reunite husband and wife after so many years. And that's what Joseph was telling his brothers. You think that you orchestrated this? It was God that did it. And therefore I have no axe to grind with any of you. I'm not upset. This had to happen to me. And it's a lesson for all of our lives. We need to recognize that nothing is happenstance. There's divine providence in every single detail. If you found yourself moving to Weston or to anywhere else, you had to be here. There's a purpose for you being here. Now, sometimes it's obvious to us what the purpose is. When things happen to us and we're not really happy that they happened, you get a flat tire on the road, you get stuck, you miss a plane, whatever it may be, and you're not happy or frustrated. Sometimes within minutes we find out how lucky we were, why we had to be where we were. Sometimes we find out a year later, and sometimes never. But be certain with one thing. God sent me and made this happen to me for a purpose, to bring sustenance to the world in the case of Joseph, or whatever other purpose in all of our own cases. Nothing is by chance. If we only knew how to embrace that truth and inculcate that truth into our mindset, we would live so much better lives. We would embrace our lives. We would see everything as the hand of God. There's no better life than that. And even if things happen that we're not happy about and we're frustrated, it's our life. That's what was meant to be. That's what had to happen to us for a purpose. Embrace it, live it, don't exchange it for anyone else's. You can't anyway. So you might as well just embrace life. So I want to wish you all that more times than not, our lives and things that happen to us should become clear to us why they happen very quickly. But even if they don't, know for certain that nothing happens by accident. Certainly nothing in our own lives happen by accident. Our lives are exactly the way they should be. And embrace it and be happy. Shabbat Shalom.